we are our own worst critics. And we would never treat our best friend the same way we treat ourselves. Stop being so critical of yourself. Hello, stereotype breakers, and welcome to yet another episode of the Meaningful Conversations podcast. Today, we're talking about the imposter syndrome, something that 70% of us experience according to statistics. So, there's a 70% chance that it is going to be relevant to you. What we're going to discuss today is what is imposter syndrome, who experiences imposter syndrome, and finally, how to deal with the imposter syndrome. So let's dive straight into it. What is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is the feeling that you are a fraud, that you don't deserve to be where you are right now. You don't deserve your own success and the recognition that comes with it because you're a fraud, because you don't believe that you have achieved all of that success yourself. You end up discrediting whatever way in which you got there, and you feel like you're just not good enough. And you might have the anxiety that people will find out that you are an imposter, that you're a fraud, that you're not supposed to be here. Raise your hand if you've ever experienced that. I feel like my whole life has been that feeling. Ever since I was a little girl where I was going to school and I was getting good grades and I didn't have to work that hard, and I was really worried that people will find out that I am actually an imposter. And then it turned into, the imposter syndrome at work, etc. It's just been following me all the time. The term imposter syndrome was first coined in the 1970s by psychologists Susanna Imes and Pauline Rose Clance. They have discovered that phenomena among high achieving women. Let me repeat that again. High achieving women experiencing imposter syndrome. And that was the very first study that was done to discover imposter syndrome, or to dive deeper into imposter syndrome, and it was done with high achieving women. And I've already said that 70% of us get imposter syndrome, experience imposter syndrome. Well, let me just go further and tell you that if you do experience it, you're in great company. Because if you Google the keywords famous people with imposter syndrome, you will find lists on top of lists on top of lists of incredible people who have achieved so much, who are recognized in their industry for their work, and yet they experience imposter syndrome, or they report to experiencing it. I'm sure a lot of people who are super successful, they just don't report, they don't talk about their imposter syndrome in interviews. People like Meryl Streep, Maya Angelou, Sheryl Sandberg, and lots of other women and men and people who experience imposter syndrome, who have achieved so much, who are incredibly recognized, but they still feel like they're a fraud and they're going to be found out. So, yes, you are not alone, and it's absolutely normal. If anything, the opposite is worse. Being overconfident, being thinking that you know everything about the world, because those people are clearly delusional. You can't know everything about the world. You can't have all of the experience in the world. You can't have all the qualifications in the world. And so, people who are overly confident in their abilities, they're the dangerous ones. If anything, being an imposter and realizing that there's more to the topic than you may know, that's just normal human behavior. So, yes, this is the 70% of people who are experiencing it. Let's talk about why it happens. And, there are various explanations to it, or various approaches to the explanations to it. One of them is that it is the result of you being a perfectionist, and you expect perfect results from yourself. You expect pure perfection from you from try number one. And if something doesn't go your way, let's say you're starting to learn a new skill and it's not happening straight away, you're not good at it immediately, you may feel like an imposter. or you don't understand, you're feeling lost because you don't have all the information, you meet something, some new subject, project, etc., and uh, you're a little lost. The perfectionist inside of you is so demanding that they're not having it. I'm also reading this book called The Imposter Cure by Dr. Jessamy Hibbard, and it's amazing. And it talks about the imposter cure on a deeper level. By the way, if this is something that you struggle with, I highly recommend this book. It's amazing. I'm listening to it, as you can probably see if you're watching the video. But Dr. Jessamy Hibbard talks about the gap between your perception of yourself and your perception of your abilities and knowledge and your imaginary perception of what people perceive you as. So you basically, there's a disconnect between what you think people think you're capable of, what you think people expect from you, and what you think you can do. And it's all in your head. Both perceptions are in your head, right? You're the creator of all of those perceptions. Sure, there may have been, signals that create your perception of what other people perceive of you or expect of you. However, it's all in your head at the end of the day. You're the creator of what is in your head. You're the creator of that gap. And it was a very interesting way of looking at it for me. So I wanted to share it here because I always think that repetition and just reiterating certain things and re explaining certain things in different contexts, words by different people, they may get through to others. So, I just do that. Maybe it will be useful for you. By now, I hope you understand what imposter syndrome is and that it is mainly in your head. Nobody is telling you that you are an imposter. Nobody is telling you that you are a fraud. Otherwise, you wouldn't be where you are. So, let's jump into the ways in which you can deal with imposter syndrome and get rid of it. Step number one, and I have created other videos on this topic, which I will leave a link to below. The first thing is changing your mindset, changing your perception of this phenomena. The fact that you feel like an imposter means that you're outside of your comfort zone, which is in itself beautiful, right? You are growing, you are learning, you're putting yourself out there in situations where you don't know everything 100% of the time, which is great, right? You are growing, you're stretching. And that is to be commended. Instead of trying to avoid imposter syndrome, change your mindset to leaning into it, to recognizing that you're feeling that way and celebrating yourself for putting yourself in the position to feel this way. Sure, it doesn't feel great, but you are doing things to put yourself into that place of growth, right? So recognize that the fact that you are feeling like an imposter is a good thing. You are pushing yourself. The second thing that I want you to do is to learn how to live with it. It kind of goes with the first point, but you will always feel like an imposter if you do continue pushing yourself. Unless you completely barricade yourself from new experiences, you will feel like an imposter. And so, just learning how to be okay with that feeling, learning how to move past it despite it, is a great skill. It's a great skill in strength and resilience. So, number two, learn to live with it, learn to work through it, learn to go past it because it's inevitable. That discomfort is inevitable. That discomfort is something that is going to follow you along your life. And if anything, living with some type of discomfort is not a bad thing. Of course, when it comes to your personal growth and challenging yourself and all that stuff, it's just normal. Step number three is learning how to use affirmations to make yourself feel better because you are strong, you are smart, you are talented, you are in the right place, and you are growing constantly. And I want you to remind yourself of that fact with affirmations. In fact, I have a list of affirmations that you can download using the link in the description. So go ahead and do that. But yeah, affirmations have been incredible for my self confidence and my self esteem. And I really hope that you use them. They're a powerful tool if you do them correctly. And by doing them correctly, I mean believing in them. It feels weird at first when you start, but once you get past that discomfort, again, the word discomfort, once you get past that resistance, they will do wonders for your mental health, for your well-being, for your self-esteem, etc. So do the affirmations. Make sure that you internalize that you are in the right place, that you are meant to be here, that you are smart, and the fact that you are working where you are working isn't because you just, it's not like from a vacuum. It happened because you achieved certain things along your life. And finally, step number 4 is to identify that voice, that inner voice inside of you that kicks in whenever self-doubt and imposter syndrome come out. Identify, patterns around it. What triggers it? What does the voice say? Start noticing those things and discredit that voice, because that voice is not real. That voice is your imagination. And just think of the most annoying person, the most unreliable person in your life or in movies or wherever, a character. And imagine that voice, that person, that character is that voice. So try to discredit that voice in your head by doing that, by associating them with that annoying character that you would never listen to because they're annoying and they don't know anything. That is that voice. Finally, number 5, this is something that I'm currently learning from the Imposter Cure, and I wanted to share. I feel like I might record a separate video on the topic once all of this information has been processed in my head. However, I do want to share this exercise with you because I think it's going to be very powerful, and hopefully it will help a lot of you feel better about yourself and feel better about your achievements. So, number 5 is writing down a list of all of your achievements, a list of all of the things that you have accomplished. Jumpstart your memories by looking at pictures, by going through, if you have any journals, diaries, if you have any type of stimulus that will take you back throughout your life. Just think about all of the different achievements. And no matter how big or small, if they are an achievement, they're an achievement, put them down. And so once you put them down, I want you to think about these achievements as if your best friend did them, or someone that you respect and love did them. Would you be proud of them? What would you say to that person for every single one of those achievements? How would you congratulate them? And write those things down right next to those achievements, like in the language that you would use to congratulate, to communicate how proud you are of a friend. Write that down. Once you're done with the whole list, step out of it and remember that those achievements are yours and that you are proud of yourself, because we are, all of the time, we are our own worst critics, and we would never treat our best friend the same way we treat ourselves. So I want you to do that, out of body experience, in order to see how your inner voice is discrediting some of those achievements, how it is making you feel less than somebody else. Stop being so critical of yourself. Remember that feeling of being proud of that third person, right? And then internalize that your own language. All right, I got goosebumps at the end of it. I kind of modified the exercise from the imposter cure because I thought it would be very powerful to see the language that you would use. So, this exercise, I honestly just improvised right now. Pretty proud of myself, not gonna lie. I hope it's helpful. But yeah, let me know what you thought about this exercise, what you thought about all of the different steps that I've taken you through. If you experience imposter syndrome on a regular basis, if you've noticed any patterns about that silly voice inside of you, the self critic, and if you've been able to neutralize it in any way. I know we're all working at it, and even the most famous, the most accomplished people are struggling with this. So we're all in the same boat. Let's just, you know, keep going and keep getting used to the discomfort and not letting it rule our lives. Like this episode if you've enjoyed it, and of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcast. And or meaningful conversations on the podcasting platform of your choice, and stereotype breakers on most social media, including YouTube. Stereotype breakers on Twitter. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate you, and I hope you've learned something new. I really hope that this episode helps you deal with your imposter syndrome and helps you feel better about yourself, your achievements, and helps you understand how wonderful you are, because you truly are. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Have a wonderful time today you're currently experiencing. Bye.